I think it's just, first of all, biblically, it's it's really hard to see. Um, the Bible is very clear. Fathers, teach these things to your children. Fathers, set up these monuments so that when your children ask you why these monuments are here, it's not just because the fathers are the ones with the muscles to put up the stones, right? That's not the only like gender role there is here. There's this expectation of some level of a gender role where the children are going to be asking the dad, why are these stones here? And then the dad should be the one prepared to answer that. Others are the ones that are commanded to raise up their children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, specifically, not in exclusion of mothers, but the specific commands are frequently given to fathers. That Colossians 3:21 says, fathers, do not provoke your children so they will not become disheartened. And this is after it talks about children, obey your parents in everything, for this is pleasing to the Lord. And fathers specifically, don't provoke your children. Now that might be because fathers are particularly apt to provoke our children of the two parents. That's possible. That's a possible reading.
Right.
It's also possible that the bulk of the formation in the types of things that could be frustrating are coming from the fathers.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've noticed that. So I like teaching the math aspect to it, and sometimes I'm teaching in a different way, or I'm not readily available to give the answer to move the progression forward. And then it's like, well, I want mom to do the homework with me today, or the schoolwork today. Like, yeah, I know that, but also I'm going to sneakily teach you algebra by doing this. And if we get this down, you're going to be 3 grade heads up, ahead of schedule. And when it comes to long division, you're not going to be so scared. So yeah, I mean, the provocation is definitely a tantalizing thing for us fathers to do.
Yeah, I think we have a tendency to drive a little harder, to be more goal oriented than child oriented than how are we the word disheartened here is like the willpower. How are we preserving the willpower of the child? Moms are a little more naturally inclined to be how do I preserve the heartedness? How do I preserve the heart of this child? Where dads are a little more inclined to be like, how do I drive towards the goal here?
Yeah, it's my that reminds me so much. My youngest has a secondary baby tooth that came in after she lost one of her first one, and so we're talking to the dentist about getting it pulled. It's like, but we're kind of, my wife took her and said, kind of nervous of how she would respond. It's like, well, we actually asked that moms don't show up that day and that the dads do, because moms are more likely to kind of preserve that, are you doing okay? How do you want to take this? And the dad's just like, my dad did this with a pair of pliers, and I still have, core memories from that formed. We're going to do this in a safe way, but we're going to get through it together. So it's just fun that even in that, it's like, well, we've actually noticed it's best for the dads to be on point for that time.
That makes sense. Yeah. Oh, and I mean, I think for the vast majority of parents, which one has to take out a splinter? Right? Like, same deal, right? Like, dad has to take out a splinter because mom's going to have a hard time not just saying, let's leave it for a few days and see what see whether it pushes out by itself.
Dad's like, hold on, let me get out my 84 knives from the Swiss Army knife that I have.
It's sometimes it can be really hard. There's a a lot of grief involved in pulling out that tiny, tiny piece of wood. So,
There's a reason it's Aesop's fables and not Aesop's wife's fables.
yeah. It turns out that a child very much needs both a mother and a father. Shocking, I know. But and just the biblical paradigm for what we would think of as the most vulnerable, right? That's the terminology we as moderns tend to, moderns and non-woke, I guess. The terminology we would use is the most vulnerable. Most frequently, the word the Bible uses for that is fatherless. Fatherless is the paradigm for vulnerability. Fatherlessness is what makes you vulnerable. And that's not obviously in exclusion of mothers. Obviously, a child needs both of their parents.
Sure.
But
we were just reading about Timothy today in our study of Acts in our family time.
Your mother and your grandmother.
Grandmother, and he was known. He was known for all these great qualities even before Paul abducted him and circumcised him and took him on the road.